Hi, this is Meena here, extending a very warm welcome to my channel Grow Joyfully. In this series of videos, I am explaining the wonderful journey of aerobic composting at home that I do in big terracotta pots. On 8th February 2021, I started a new batch in my big terracotta pot, layering the greens and browns. 6 days later, I gave the entire mix a very thorough stir. As I opened the bin on 28th February 2021, which was about 20 days later, I witnessed the miracle where the greens had vanished completely. I present 3 videos in order to explain the composting process in a very simple, commonsensical fashion. In the first video, I have talked about the shelter and the food requirements of the aerobic bacteria. And in this video that you're watching, I'm going to talk about the importance of maintaining the appropriate moisture level and aeration, what we generally call as the ambience inside the composting bin.
The primary need for us, human beings, are 3: food, clothing and shelter. It's the similar thing with microorganisms also. They also need food. I talked about the carbon and nitrogen. They don't need clothing, they are invisible, but they require the appropriate ambience. And like we need shelter, they also need shelter. So I've spoken about the food part. I'm now going to talk about the shelter part. Why did we insist on a container which has holes? And why did we say we prefer terracotta? The holes are required and mandatory because they facilitate air circulation from outside to the inner portion, the shelter. So the container is the place where they are living and they require a lot of ventilation, and hence holes are required. Secondly, moisture is very important. I will explain shortly, but one point is that if there is excess moisture, they will die. Right? They cannot breathe. They will die. And hence, if there is no excess moisture here, you can see that. Even the container that I had, there's hardly any, at the bottom I had kept, but there was hardly any water collection. But if there was excess moisture, because when you put fruit peels like papaya or watermelon, it's possible that they emit out a lot of water. And in order to remove the excess leachate, we insist on holes being present at the bottom of the container as well, and the leachate get extracted. And this leachate is also very, very nutritious, and this can be diluted and given to the plants in a 1:10 ratio. I spoke about food for the microorganisms. I spoke about the shelter for the microorganisms. Now I'm going to talk about the third very key requirement called ambience. What kind of an ambience they want inside the bin? They want an ambience which is moist and which is well aerated. This is very important, moist and well aerated. Why? Let's see. If you look at the mix here, if you ask me, okay, I can't see the microbacteria, beneficial bacteria. Where do they live? Do they live everywhere in the entire container inside the particles? We call these as particles. No. They live, let me show you, only on the surface area of the particles. This is very important to understand. They are not living everywhere. They live only in the surface area. And that surface area should not be dry. It should be aqueous. That means there should be something like a thin water film on top of every bit of greens, every particle of greens and every particle of browns. Thin film of water. So you have to visualize. We can't see the bacteria. They are all living here. So that's the first point to understand. They live on the surface area of the particles. That explains, if they get more surface area, they will have more place to live and they will multiply happily faster. That is the reason we say, preferably you shred the pieces, the greens and the browns, if possible, into smaller pieces. because when you cut them into smaller pieces, the surface area that is available is more, and hence the population also increases more. It's like they have more personal space and they can multiply faster. So that explains about the particle size. Okay. I also said they are living here. That means they are living in water. Water meaning in an aqueous film. When air circulates through the bin, let's say that it's well circulated, they require oxygen to breathe. They are called as aerobic bacteria. That means they require air. They require oxygen to breathe. Where is this oxygen coming from? It's coming from the air that is circulating inside the bin. But then they don't draw the oxygen from the air. This is another technical point, but let me explain it very quickly. The oxygen gets diffused into the water, the thin film of aqueous film that is there, because that's where the bacteria is residing, and the oxygen is, that diffused oxygen is what is used by the bacteria to breathe. I hope I'm not getting very technical here. What I'm trying to say is they require a moist environment, and they are sitting on that aqueous film and they are drawing upon the oxygen which is coming from the air and which is getting diffused into the water. That's what they are breathing. Now you will understand very clearly why we say the mixture should be moist. On the second day you would have seen me spending a lot of time giving it a thorough mix. On day one, we simply did a layering. The dry leaves were really dry. And we didn't put water there to make the mix moist. The green matter generates a lot of water. By giving a thorough mix, what we ensured was that the whole mix becomes one homogeneous, moist mix. You should not have a single material which is not moist, because then bacteria will not live there. They may either go dormant if it is dry, or they may even die. They may remain dormant, or they may remain they may die. So it is important to ensure that they have a moist environment. Okay. One more thing that was happening because we gave a thorough mix was that while air is coming into the bin, it is quite possible that air circulation can get obstructed inside the bin. How come? When we put fruit material like papaya, watermelon, etc., they can become very soggy and they can get compacted like this. When they get compacted, what happens? You can easily make out the oxygen supply is obstructed, and the bacteria which are living there waiting for oxygen to get diffused into the water film, they don't get the oxygen, they die. When they die, anaerobic conditions develop, oxygen-less conditions, anaerobic bacteria take over, and typically they emit out gases like hydrogen sulfide or ammonia, and that results in obnoxious odor in your bin. The very fact that it's very earthy smell, there's absolutely no unwanted smell or undesirable smell, means that the aeration is also very healthily maintained in the bin. And how do we maintain aeration? We don't require a machine. We just require a rake, or you can wear a pair of gloves, and you ensure that from top to bottom and side to side you give a thorough mix. We did not add any water into the bin. It was a green matter which emitted out water, and because we thoroughly mixed, the entire mix has become very moist. How do I know that I'm keeping the right moisture level inside the bin? Because moisture level is the key success factor in the whole process. Now, do I require a moisture meter? No. It's enough if I do a sponge test, as they call it. Take the mix and hold it in your hand and try to squeeze it. You must get maximum 1 or 2 drops of water. Right now, I'm not getting even that 1 drop of water. Okay. Now, this is where you may also ask. That means I can make the mix a little more moist. The entire mix can be glistening with a little bit more moisture. This is where people ask me this question, what is so sacrosanct about that 1G3B that I was chanting? Okay, when you say 1 part of greens and 3 parts of browns, it will remain like this only. Then you may ask, some people say 1:2 is enough or 1:2.5 is enough. Okay, now this comes only with practice. In the first few batches, I always say, please do use 1G3B. It is better to have less moisture so that you add a little more water rather than getting a pile which is soggy. When the pile is hot and soggy, when the mix, it will attract a lot of creepy crawlies. Can you please zoom here? Do you see any even ants? Do you see any maggots? Do you see any creeper crawlies? I did see 1 or 2 flies, 1 or 2 ants trying to escape when I transferred the contents from the bin to the tub. But that's about it. So what are we talking about? The odor is fine. There are no creepy crawlies. Those were 2 main objections many people have with respect to aerobic composting. It smells yucky and I'm scared of all those creepy crawlies. Where are the creepy crawlies? So if you maintain 1 part of greens and 3 part of browns, odor will be pleasant, and if you mix regularly, odor will be present. You will not have creepy crawlies at all. We saw the importance of aerating the mix. Aeration is also facilitated, that is the prevention of anaerobic pockets is prevented by the presence of these small twigs. Earlier I had said dry leaves come with twigs. You don't need to segregate them, you don't need to sieve them. At most you can cut them into smaller pieces or leave them like that in the bin because they will prevent matting from happen. Of course, they will not get decomposed at all for 2 or 3 batches, which is okay. When we harvest our black gold, this can be removed using a coarse sieve, and again this can be put in the next batch. So that is one way we achieve aeration. That's the advantage of using dry leaves and twigs.
In my next video, I will review the 1 greens 3 browns ratio and explain how to adapt it. I'll also be talking about the usage of accelerator. Thank you for watching my video. Have a great day.